we're talking about priorities. Dan, I'm going to ask you, there's no question you have a lot of different initiatives going on. What are you focused on this year as far as your top, two or three priorities there?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you three plus a cross-cutting one. Right?
Sounds great.
A little bit there, but so I think one of the interesting challenges here is 5G is so diverse, and all of our panelists have already touched on aspects of this. Right? We were just talking about MIMO and beamforming and all the stuff happening at the 5G radio access network, or the 5G RAN. And so on the radio access network, I think one of our top priorities really is spectrum agility and spectrum sharing. Right? At the physical layer, when we actually transmit the bits across across the air, there's a lot of contention for that space, a lot of contention for that spectrum. That spectrum is highly valuable. How do we appropriately use that spectrum, share that spectrum? And so one priority at the 5G radio access network, the 5G RAN part, is spectrum sharing. Mm-hmm. Second priority is going to take us in a different direction, and Darius did a great job of pointing out that 5G has a lot of wired connectivity. Right? We tend to think of 5G as it's that wireless transmission, and it is, but it's also the 5G core network. Was mentioned by a couple of panelists. Network slicing. What can we do on the back end once the signal reaches the tower? Can we put this on a virtual slice, essentially a virtual network on top of the network that could give us some added security, some added performance? And so on the core end, I would say that that network slicing and understanding better security in the core is our second key priority. And then the third one, just to make sure we fill out the whole 5G picture, right? So we could say 5G is all about the wireless part of the network, the spectrum, and it kind of is. Or we could say, no, 5G is all about the wired network and the back-end core, and it kind of is. Or we could say, really, 5G is all about the edge computing, the cloud computing, bringing that cloud to the edge. And that's also been touched on by several of the other panelists. Right? If we can get MEC resources, that 5G edge computing out there, we can do a lot more things that might be better suited for disconnected environments where we have, say, unreliable backhaul back to the cloud, to be expeditionary environments, even in a scenario where we have great connectivity back to the cloud, back to the generic internet cloud throughout the world. Having that edge computing right there near the towers, right there near the edge, as the name implies, could give us additional benefits in terms of low latency processing that otherwise might not be possible. So those are my three: RAN sharing, so spectrum sharing, spectrum agility on the RAN side, security slicing on the core side, edge computing, bringing that edge computing to the battlefield in our case, in the case of DoD, and finally my fourth bonus one in there is all of those are heavily dependent on getting security right. We can't share spectrum appropriately if we don't have security in at that level. We can't do slicing. We can't manage the core if we can't do security. That edge computing is great, but if that edge computing is not secure, very much limits its usefulness. So that's sort of our big picture, and I know that's a lot, but 5G is an interesting challenge.